Welcome to the Fiscal Physical Podcast. Join us each week as we sit down with the founder of Alchemy Wealth Management and author of Your Fiscal Physical, Ryan Nelson. Tune in to gain valuable insights and practical tips as we simplify complex financial concepts into digestible lessons. From budgeting to retirement planning, this podcast is your go-to resource for mastering financial literacy.
Welcome, everybody, and thanks so much for joining us here on the Fiscal Physical Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Aaron Hoisington, here with my co-host and the founder of Alchemy Wealth Management, Ryan Nelson. Always a good time with you here, Ryan. And what do you got going on these days, Ryan? How's life treating you?
Life's good. Life's good. I can't complain at all.
That's good, man. I love to hear that. Anytime I was in a meeting the other day, and one of my coworkers was like, "Oh, how's it going?" And he was asking everybody, and one guy's like, it's fine. I can't complain. Like, no one listens anyway." And I was like, "Well, that's
what?"
That I was like,
"What'd you say?"
Yeah, I was like, "Sorry, I wasn't listening." Yeah, kind of thing. I was like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." Carl, not his real name, but use that. But it was just funny. I was like, "Well, that's." Sometimes you just ask those pleasantry questions, and like every once in a while, somebody will like answer with something that like shocks you, and you're like, "Oh, okay, maybe I should actually like pay attention to this."
Yeah.
Like some of these times, I'm like, "Hey, how's it going?" And someone's like, "Bad," and I was like, "Okay, well, let's." I don't really want to dig into that, but I was just being nice, kind of thing. But anyway, I digress here. Let's talk about some financial topics. You ready today, Ryan?
Absolutely.
All right. So today we're going to be talking about minimum wage or living wage, or maybe minimum wage versus living wage. Kind of break those down, understand the real difference between them. I think everybody's probably heard both of these terms, maybe thrown out, I don't know, interchangeably or whatnot there. So I'm hoping you can kind of give us some insight, Ryan, into what the difference between these two and what's important here, and all that, break down the nitty gritty for us here.
Absolutely. Let's do it. So minimum wage, that's a government mandated hourly rate. Mm-hmm. So mandated by the government, some amount minimum rate that you must pay employees. So it doesn't vary based on what the cost of living is. Right now, the federal minimum wage, I think, is $7.25.
Oh, okay.
So you can't hire somebody and pay them less than $7.25. That being said, some states or cities can set different or higher minimum wages. So in Nevada, I think our current minimum wage is $12.
Okay.
So even though the federal government's saying, hey, you can't pay an employee less than $7.25, the state of Nevada is saying, that's great. You can't pay an employee in Nevada less than $12. Mm-hmm. And our neighbors to the west, California, they say you can't pay an employee less than $16.50. So again, it's just a government mandated minimum wage that you can pay somebody. So now a living wage is effectively, it's calculated based on the cost of basic needs. So they take into account things like housing, food, transportation, healthcare, childcare, taxes, stuff like that. And so you can imagine, some of those things I mentioned, housing, food, transportation, those are going to vary, even taxes, they're going to vary differently if you're living in San Francisco versus Reno versus, Montana versus Seattle versus Texas, right? Mm-hmm. And so the living wage is based on all these factors. It's going to differ depending on where you're at in the country. But is effectively meant to reflect what somebody needs to survive. I think they say with basic dignity. So it's not to go to the movies every night, right? Mm-hmm. It's not all these like extra expenses. Yeah. But how much does somebody need to survive? And so it's possible that the living wage and the minimum wage don't like match, right? And so I think the key difference is minimum wage is a law. Living wage is just a benchmark. Okay. So you identify, hey, what's the living wage in Reno, Nevada? And I don't know what it is, but maybe it's $20 an hour. Mm-hmm. But the minimum wage is only $12. So it's saying, hey, to live sort of, to kind of live in Nevada and survive, or in Reno and to survive, maybe you need $20 an hour. But the state of Nevada is only requiring employers to at minimum pay employees $12 an hour based on the minimum wage. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely does. No, I think that breaking it like, cool, this is the set standard, and then this is I think the word benchmark was a great way to describe that for sure, of like, hey, this is what we've taken into consideration, all these different factors, and this is where we're setting kind of what's determined the living wage, if you will, too. Yeah,
Yep.
No, that's great.
So living wages are going to be better at reflecting sort of real world expenses in the current economic conditions. So, why this matters is it's interesting, from like almost a policy standpoint, for politicians and stuff, to be able to identify economic inequalities, budgeting challenges, right? There's lots of different implications for it. What I care about as a financial advisor is how these sort of play together. And so, if maybe an employee, or like a theoretical client is earning the minimum wage, but some wage below the living wage,
right.
What that means is that person is not yet living enough. They're not making enough money to sort of live in that community, right? That means they're having to subsidize their living with things like debt. So are they at a stage yet to start putting money into their Roth IRA or saving? Probably not. And it may not make sense to, contribute to a Roth IRA and go into even more debt if your income is below the living wage, right? But once you start crossing that living wage threshold, now you start sort of having extra money, and a piece of that extra money is probably responsible to start getting allocated towards retirement, right? And so you might talk to somebody and they say, I don't have any extra money to save for retirement. And it's like, okay, maybe they're earning quite a bit more than the current living wage, though. And so that would tell us, hey, here's the living wage. This is sort of what's been identified that you need to live on. This is what you're currently earning. If you're spending all of that money, there's probably a lot of extra money there that's going to unnecessary expenses. We might want to reel those unnecessary expenses in and start saving for retirement, right?
Right.
So I would argue if your income is at or below a living wage, you're probably not earning yet enough to contribute to retirement. If your income is above the living wage, you're at a place where you should be saving at least some amount to retirement. And obviously, the higher your wage gets above the living wage, the more and more you should start saving. So that's sort of how I think that living wage impacts the financial planning world and retirement savings.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. And I'm really stoked that you brought that back like full circle to like how it affects like the financial planning piece of it for sure. Because in my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, like the living wage, minimum wage. I was like, okay, cool. Like I understand. But it really kind of shows like, hey, if you're below the living wage, like if maybe you're probably not going to be able to contribute to that.
Right.
That might not be and even at that living wage, like you said, it's just survival almost.
Yeah.
So like at that point, you're like, hey, do I have an extra, $700 a month to put into my retirement? Probably not if you're just at the living wage. But once you start, getting, and I think it kind of harkens back to living within your means at the same time too, because like if you get above that living wage, and then you're like, oh, cool, I have extra money, like really thinking about what you're going to do with that and put it towards the best way to kind of start for that retirement planning or, pay off that debt. So then you can move towards those different areas. So I think that's from the financial planning perspective, that was cool to kind of break that down for sure. And
kind of close that gap so that we said that living wage is a benchmark, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So quick Google search will tell me that for a single person living in Reno, Nevada, the living wage is $23.60 an hour.
Okay.
So then you can use that benchmark and say, oh, I'm earning $28 an hour above this benchmark of living wage, but I'm telling myself I can't save for retirement. Maybe that could be a little eye-opening to you and realize, okay, I'm spending something, I have maybe some extra expenses here. Maybe I need to reevaluate my finances, but you could maybe be earning $28 an hour and be, without a benchmark like this, be convincing yourself, I just don't earn enough yet.
Right.
I'm barely getting by. I don't earn enough. I can't save yet, but I will in the future when I earn more. But then you earn more, you're like, I still can't quite save yet. Rents cost so much more. Rent's been going up. Well, this takes that into account, right? So it gives you that benchmark where you can evaluate sort of objectively and say, hey, I'm earning $28 an hour. It feels like I can't save, but actually the living wage in my community is only $23.60 an hour. So I actually maybe I need to reevaluate this. Maybe I can start to take that objective look in the mirror and say, okay, maybe there are some expenses here I don't actually need. could I cut any of these out and start saving a little bit for retirement? So
Right.
again, just a benchmark and can help us evaluate.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is it's great to kind of use that measuring stick to kind of determine what you're going to do next and how you're gonna spend that money or where you're gonna put it for the retirement there. So fun stuff overall. But awesome, Ryan. That's great, man. Do you have anything else to say on that? I feel like we did pretty well.
Sounds great to me.
Yeah, no, I hope that really kind of paints a picture for people. Living wage, minimum wage, what they mean when they're thrown around. They're not. Well, maybe they are equal in some cases, but definitely know the difference between those two. So awesome. Everybody, hang tight. We'll be right back on the other side of this with some personal stuff.
And now, to put the personal in personal finance.
Welcome back to this side of the Fiscal Physical podcast. We just got done talking about some living wage, minimum wage here. And Ryan, I got a question for you. It doesn't relate to that at all, actually. Don't know why I led with that, so sorry. But my question to you is, this is a broad question, a kind of a tougher one to answer. When I was writing it down, I was like, we get maybe a little philosophical on it, but maybe not. But what motivates you the most? Would it be between these three options: freedom, impact, or wealth?
Yeah, it is an interesting question. Yeah, I think like philosophically, I guess, I do kind of almost go there first. And so I think of wealth as like a tool. Mm-hmm. So, if we want freedom and impact, I kind of see wealth as a tool. Like the more wealth I have, the more freedom of time I have. Mm-hmm. I can go travel, like the way I think most people would define freedom. Like, can I go to a Packers game this weekend? Right? Can I, can I take tomorrow off? Can I go buy a new car? If my car breaks down, can I get to work? Right? Like, I think most of how we define freedom, it does take some amount of wealth to accomplish it. Right? And same with impact. If we want to impact the community, oftentimes we can impact by giving back money, right? Mm-hmm. Or giving time. But again, if you go tell a single mom of 3 working 2 jobs to go volunteer somewhere, she's like, I don't have the time, right? But if she didn't have to work the 2 jobs, if she had wealth, she'd free up more time, be able to give back more. So what I think is interesting is like wealth is this tool that it gives you freedom, gives you impact, gives you lots of other opportunity as well. So I don't know that wealth itself like I do think I'm motivated by money. But I see it almost as a tool to accomplish these other things. So I'd almost think like if you keep saying like why do you want money? I think the ultimate reason of why I want money is to have like this freedom. Yeah. So I do think freedom is probably my ultimate motivator, but I think wealth is like the tool I view as helping me get there the fastest. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think sort of
that's great. Yeah.
I didn't answer your question at all.
No, I'm more confused when I started.
Yeah. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I'm not really sure now.
As long as I have double bubble.
Exactly. Yeah, that's all I need. I double bubble and a smell of rubber, and I'm good to go. But no, I think that what you said actually does make sense. I made a joke about it, but I think it actually does. And I think that ultimately, like my goal is that freedom, and I would almost say like that financial freedom generally leads to like more time freedom as well too. And I think that we've talked previously about how like time is like the most valuable resource that we have. Like and so being able to have that. The freedom of worrying about, I think it's in Forrest Gump where he's like, well, now money's one more thing I don't have to worry about kind of thing. Like, and I think that'd be great to be able to do that. So I would hearken back to, I've used that word twice now on this podcast, not really sure what it means, but I would go back to, I think for myself to the wealth piece of it to then free up freedom. And then what I do with that freedom, maybe then I make an impact through that. Like, so I think they could all kind of be tied together in that. Sure. But I think that it's kind of like one of those things in order to, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step or something like that. Like, I think that you have to, for me, I'm like, cool, the first step on this would be to build the wealth, which then will help the freedom, which then potentially could lead to the impact down the road. But
that's kind of how I view it as well. I bet you I also view this through a very particular lens. I own a financial planning firm, right? Naturally. There's probably somebody else who says if you can get this freedom, the wealth and impact will come. And somebody else can probably say, hey, if you can have impact, the wealth and freedom will come, right? So I bet they are all just intertwined, and I see the world through a particular lens, owning wealth management firm, I see wealth as a tool to get me to the other tool too. But I suspect that you could probably have that conversation with somebody else who sees, maybe freedom as a tool to get you to the other two, or so.
Yeah, no, that's perfect, man. I'd love the listeners to chime in there and see what, how you kind of view those three things and how they're intertwined. Is there one that comes first? Do they work together? Like what do you think would be the I guess the one that motivates you the most in your life there? And so, but awesome, Ryan. Appreciate it as always, man. We'll go ahead and wrap this bad boy up, and I'll let you have the last words here.
As always, stay the course.
Thank you for joining us for the Fiscal Physical Podcast. Until next time, happy listening. And as always, stay the course. If you have a question or topic suggestions, please email us at podcast@alchemywealth.com. If you enjoyed today's discussion, subscribe to the podcast to ensure you never miss an episode. And consider leaving us a rating and review on your favorite platform. This helps other listeners like you find the show. For more resources, you can visit Alchemy Wealth Management's website at www.alchemywealth.com or find your Fiscal Physical, the book, on Amazon. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention that personal finance is just that, personal. Please don't take anything we say as advice. The preceding content is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It's not an offer or a solicitation, nor should it be construed or relied upon for tax, legal, or investment advice. It doesn't consider your personal financial situation or objectives and may not be suitable for you.